Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird joining you live from Diriomo, Nicaragua. Let me get Instagram going here. And it looks like we're going on Instagram now. So perfect. Hope you're doing well today. Had a wonderful weekend. Beautiful here. We're coming to the end of rainy season. So we get one last really hard push, and then it doesn't rain again till the fall. So pretty much the opposite. If it's wintertime in the States, it's summertime here. If it's summertime in the States, it's the rainy season here. And so it's actually really weird because the days are actually getting shorter here. The sun is going down earlier and it's coming up a little later. It still comes up around 5:30, but it's going down around 5. In the winter here, technically what would be winter in the US, the days are longer. So it's really my body's kind of a little freaked out. It's like what's going on. So, but hey, we're having a good time. We're making sure we're getting out in the sun multiple times a day. Um, so excellent. But enough of the chit chat. I hope you're doing well today. Please like, subscribe, um, help spread the word that people need to get outside more. Lord knows that the algorithm is not in my favor. So help me out if you can. Give me a like and a subscribe. So the number one thing you can improve your health, especially if you're over 40 years old, involves a piece of paper or a pad of paper and a pen. And I usually don't spring this on people right away. I really like making things simple. When for people first start, we start adding, we do our 5 fundamental habits. We really try and get people more mindful and more present. And that tends to make them make better choices when they're living in the moment and they're mindful and they're present and they're healthier from doing the 5 fundamental habits. But I really don't pull this out till later, till people really want to get serious, because the problem with this method is that it can dig up rabbit holes and dig up, you know, bodies, so to speak, or um, memories, traumas. It really can lead to some serious, deep emotional work. And some people just aren't ready to do that. So basically, what I have people do, and this I did this myself, is I basically just for 3 or 4 days, I wrote down everything I did during the day. Like I'd write down like one of my and habits are neither good or bad. I don't look at it as good or bad. I established like, what are your goals? Okay, your goals are to be healthier. You got an autoimmune disease to improve your health, or you want to lose body fat, or you want to get more muscular, or whatever your goals are. Basically, write those goals down, and then I write out. Okay, the first thing I do when I get up, I start scrolling through my phone, and I write that down. And then what do I do after that? So I basically write down the entire and scrolling through your phone first thing in the morning is probably not a good habit. I mean, no good or bad. It's not going to help me get towards my goal because I'm starting my day off instead of going. This is something I used to do. Instead of going directly outside or drinking a big glass of water or taking my supplements that I need to take, I'm falling into the dopamine matrix right off the bat, right? And that just sets the stage for the rest of the day. So I write down everything I do during that day, and then I basically score it like, is this habit pushing me towards my goal or away from my goal or neutral, right? And I look at that. And then I also take into effect, I make note of like, okay, I am stressed. When I'm stressed, I tend to reach towards alcohol or pizza or nachos or ice cream or comfort type foods. I medicate myself with food. Then you start looking at some of these habits that you have 40 years of, if you're 40 plus years of age, you've been doing a lot of these coping mechanisms most of your life. And a book that really helped me is when I read The Body Keeps the Score. And I read that book, and it lists off, like, when you have trauma, especially at a young age, the things that you tend to do to cope with these traumas. And this is where it gets serious because for me, once I read that a lot of these coping mechanisms are because you're dealing with the cards you were dealt. I grew up in church. I grew up in a very religious home. So a lot of these coping mechanisms were frowned upon, and I was made to feel guilty, like there was something wrong with me. And we're not going to use the trauma as an excuse, but it's much easier to understand, like, okay, why do I keep doing this behavior when I'm presented with stress or I'm presented with a difficult situation, even though I consciously don't really necessarily want to? Why am I reverting to this? And once you understand this is kind of a natural coping mechanism, then you can basically go, well, I maybe need to dig deeper and deal with this trauma so I don't fall into this loop of every time I get under a lot of stress, I start drinking a couple bottles of glasses of wine. And before you know it, I'm drinking, half a bottle every night to make myself feel better, to distract myself. So I'm not dealing with my emotions, my feelings. I'm not getting that stuff out. I'm not putting it behind me. So I'm going to read off a list of behaviors that may be a coping mechanism for trauma. Substance abuse, using drugs or alcohol to numb emotional pain or escape trauma-related memories, which can lead to addiction and worsen overall mental health. Avoidance, steering clear of people, places, or actions that remind them of the trauma, which can lead to social interactions and hinder recovery. IA may be sabotaging relationships as you develop closeness with people because you're not comfortable in that situation. That's just an example that comes to mind in my own life. Self-harm, engaging in behaviors such as cutting, other forms of self-injury as a way to cope with intense emotional distress. I would also put exercise addiction in there. I've seen tons of people that are cardioing themselves to death or training themselves to death because they're using that to medicate themselves. I fall into that category. Definitely not cardioing myself to death, but using exercise to manage hate, manage anger. Negative self-talk, engaging in a pattern of self-criticism, internal negativity dialogue, which can exacerbate feelings of worthlessness and depression, especially if you grew up in an environment that was extremely negative, where you could never do anything right. Nothing was ever good enough. This is something that almost is soothing to you. It makes you feel better. It's kind of like scratching a scab. It feels good at the moment, but it's not good in the long run. Anger or irritability, experiencing frequent outbursts of anger and irritability, which may result in strained relationships and further emotional distress. Risky behavior, participating in dangerous activities such as reckless driving, motorcycles at high speeds, never done that, or unsafe sexual practices as a way to cope with distraction of trauma-related feelings, chasing that dopamine, chasing that affirmation from the opposite sex, or, same sex in some situations, no judgment. Emotional numbing, detaching emotionally from oneself and others to avoid pain, which can interfere with forming healthy relationships. So basically shutting yourself off, not allowing yourself to get attached to anyone or anything. Um, Overworking, immersing oneself in work to the point of exhaustion as a way to avoid dealing with traumatic memories and emotions. A lot of entrepreneurs fall into this category. I fell into this category. I would work literally from 5 in the morning to 8 at night and collapse with exhaustion at night. So I didn't have to deal with all the drama and the baggage that I'd pushed into the closet. Hypervigilance, being excessively alert, on guard for potential threats, which can lead to chronic stress and fatigue. A lot of our former military people fall into this category. The idea is to have balance between, being able to turn it on when you need to and being able to shut it off when you need to. And most people that are, surviving major trauma, they lose that ability to switch it off and on. Repression or denial, subconsciously pushing traumatic memories out of conscious awareness, which can prevent emotional process and healing. These negative coping mechanisms can impede recovery and often require intervention to replace them with more constructive strategies. So the reason I start with the simple fundamental things, the 5 fundamental habits: get outside 3 times a day, get your morning light, do all that stuff, eat a protein at every meal, drink high quality water, have social connection, get the lights off at night. We want to get you as healthy as possible. So if we go down this rabbit hole of like coping mechanisms, you're going to have the mental bandwidth and you're going to have the ability to handle it. Because you kick that, if that closet door comes crashing open and all this stuff comes flying out of it and you're not in a good place, man, it's sucks, because I've been there. So if you've been struggling for a while and you really haven't been able to move the needle, if you're willing to do some deep work, write down everything you do for like a week and then start going through and start looking at some of these things. Like, well, how do I react when I get under stress? Do I eat a whole bag of chips when I feel like, the world is collapsing around me? Do I drink half a bottle of wine? Do I eat a whole thing of cheesecake? Do I get on the phone and start gossiping with all my friends? Do I treat other people around me poorly? Do I treat myself poorly? Do an inventory of your behavior, but be prepared to know that you might need to go back into the past and get rid of some of this crap. I highly recommend like neurofeedback, EMDR therapy, a good therapist who can help you go back, get rid of some of this stuff, deal with it, and put it behind you. And so you actually deal with the root cause of a lot of these coping mechanisms. And it's a combination of the modern environment with the screens and not getting outside, requiring more and more dopamine, more screen. The more you scroll, the more you screen. And I would also throw pornography into the coping mechanism too, particularly for men. Women, not so much. Women tend not to be as visual. The women tend to fall into the mental pornography realm, which is like the romance novels and all that sort of thing. The women like the mental imagery, whereas men are more visual. There are exceptions, of course. Burn me upside down at the stake. There are differences generally between men and women. I'm happy to be burned alive upside down for saying that. So when you get into this stuff, be prepared to do the deep work. And just know that a lot of it's going to be painful. A lot of it's going to suck. But what's going to happen is you keep pushing this stuff behind you and you basically keep putting all this baggage in the closet. Eventually, over time, that closet is going to come crashing down and you're going to have to clean the room. You're going to have to, one day, it's like the hoarder that one day has to move and they literally have a path to the bathroom and they have a path to their couch and everything else is piled to the ceiling. And they have to hire a crew to come in and pay them a bunch of money to literally, clean the place up because they can't do it themselves. So the sooner you start dealing with a lot of these things, the better. And your habits are either going to push you towards what you want or take you away, or they're going to be neutral. And that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't kick your heels up and go off the rails a little bit. Like if I had a really tough week, I've gotten disciplined enough where I can go out and say, you know what, I'm going to have a pizza tonight. I'm going to finish it off with ice cream and I'm going to have 2 drinks and that's it. That's a reset for me. It's like kind of scratches my, my feel good, get it out of my system thing. And then I move forward. And the next day I'm right back to, my habits, my food, everything's dialed in. I do some reflection. I do some meditation. I'm like, okay, why did I do this? I chose to do it knowing well that that was a coping mechanism, but I'm choosing to do it. And then I'm going to get away from it. Some people, they have that 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine or that scoop of ice cream, and it turns into a 3-month bender or a 2-month bender. Jordan Peterson talks about people that the worst thing they can do is have money because they have money and all of a sudden it all goes up their nose. And so there's people that can handle success, handle money. You kind of have to figure out who you are and what is a acceptable amount of shenanigans for you. And if you can handle those, but this requires a ton of being present, a ton of self-observation, and then also probably the guidance of somebody else to hold you accountable and give you some guidance. But most people just want to continue to, medicate themselves with the phone, with Netflix, with nachos, with, there's nothing wrong with nachos. It's just, comfort foods, chips, anything that makes them feel good temporarily, but digs that hole down the road. Most people just want to do that. They don't want to do the hard work of actually looking in themselves, sitting quietly and allowing some of this stuff to bubble to the surface. So there you go. Thank you for watching. If you are watching, please feel free to give me a like. I would love that. That would really help spread the message. I think this is a perspective that a lot of people kind of overlook because I've dealt with this and continue to deal with this constantly in my own life, and then also working with clients over the last almost 30 years now. If you're a man over 40, I'd love to have you in the Vitality Brotherhood. I'll put a link in the description. It's for a community for men over 40. It's funny, I was on a podcast the other day, and that I was joking around. It was somebody that knows me well. And the first part of my career, Rommel, calm down. I have a little puppy that's literally wearing my older dog out. So it's really funny because this person that I used to work with, we were joking around about how the first part of my career was spent training mostly women. I mean, I trained everything professional athletes to, CEOs, executives, but the majority of my clients were women. And at the time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there weren't women in the weight room at all, right? And now, when you go to a gym, even here in Nicaragua, there's not very many men. It's mostly women. So the women have taken over the weight room. And now I'm like at a point in my life, I'm over 50, or I'm getting close to 50. I turned 50 in April. I'm at a point in my life where it's like, hey, maybe I need to steer my efforts into helping. A lot of dudes hit 40 and they've kind of let themselves go and they get themselves in a really bad place. So I want to create a community where men could come and talk and support each other, and we can, get them going in the right direction. Not to say that I don't work with other people as well, which I do, but I really feel called to provide some services because it's easy for me, because a lot of the content is just me living my life. A lot of the things I'm preaching to people over 40, men in particular, is stuff I'm doing every day anyways. So love to have you in that community, vitalitybrotherhood.com. It's completely free. Come in. We've got a coffee meeting at every Wednesday at 8 a.m. There's a place where you can do question and answer sessions, or you can ask me questions. We've got a whole forum for like history stuff. We've got travel stuff. We've got I'm happy to add other topics and subjects in there. So we'd love to have you in that group. And there's an exercise index, but it's completely free. I'm adding more content to it constantly. And part of be honest, part of the reason I'm doing it is for selfish reasons. I'm here living in Nicaragua. I have a few people that I know and hang out with, but it would really be great to have a bunch of dudes to hang out and chat history with, and hang out and talk about current events without, people flying off the handle and getting too upset. It would just be nice to talk cars and talk shop, talk motorcycles with dudes, and then also, provide some of the insight of me and some of the lessons that I've learned the hard way over time. So have yourself a great day. Go to stillmanwellness.com and get on the email list. This Thursday, I am going to be talking about some really simple things that you can add to your workout that will dramatically change the way you move and feel. And so that email will go out Wednesday night, and I'm going to be, that'll be on StreamYard. So you'll have to sign up for that. And I'm happy to answer questions during that call. And so we'd love to have you there. And it's going to be really cool because it's going to be stuff that you can really apply to your workouts like right away. That'll make a huge difference. And once you understand this principle, it's going to make a big difference for you. So have yourself a great day. Make sure you get outside today. Make sure you live in the moment, be present, so you can be aware, and you're not just a complacent, compliant consumer who's just like, inhaling bags of chips and then running through life without slowing down and being present. So take care. Hopefully we'll see it on the webinar on Thursday. And I'd love to see you if you're over a 40-year-old dude. I'd love to see you in the Vitality Brotherhood. So take care.